schools of civilization.
More terrible.
That is a Maha-evil.
Yeah, it's more evil. It's more evil.
Absolutely. Please come. Okay. Follow you.
आदाब
आदाब कैसे हैं? ठीक ठाक? बिल्कुल सब तो ठीक है। आगे का नहीं बता सकते। किधर बैठना है साहब? हुक्म दीजिए आप।
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. रोज नहीं आना है। ओहो। You don't close school just for 16 I came to Air India and Indian Airlines. Then I came to Parliament.
Country director of the World Bank. Thanks a lot for taking time.
Moderator and the anchor for the day for this discussion and dialogue of civilization. This is the launch of the idea, the ideology, and the people who are bringing it here in India would be introduced to you shortly. Rooted in a tradition of seeking dialogue-based solutions to humankind's most pressing issues, the Dialogue of Civilization Research Institute builds on the work and achievements of its predecessor organization, the World Public Forum Dialogue of Civilizations, bringing together global thought leaders from academia, public policy, business and civil society to debate and develop practice-based policy advice. And now we are going to start with the program formally and officially. For that, firstly, I would like to invite on the stage Mr. Bas, Suresh Keswani, Mr. Ketkar, to kindly be here on the stage and do the felicitation of our esteemed guests present here with us.
Welcome, sir. Thank you. Why not? Why not? Thank you. See, the culture is prospering in India. In no season we get that. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
And now I would like to invite on stage Shri Hamid Ansari, former Indian Vice President. lighting of the lamp for every auspicious start so that it remains forever and ever with all the positivity of the idea behind it. So with this, we officially start with our session for today, Dialogue of Civilization Research Institute to India, India in a Changing World. I think we can contribute with a little more round of applause to add on some more positivity and energy to the program. I mean, why it's so gloomy and dull out here.
Mr. Kumar Ketkar.
Yeah.
You're required.
Alfred.
Okay, now lamp is lightened and this place is enlightened and kind to enlighten our mind with some insightful thoughts. Very firstly, I would like to invite Mr. Kumar Ketkar, Member of Parliament and Executive Member of Parliamentary Network on the World Bank India Group, to express his views.
Well, actually, I am here not to express my views as such, but to welcome you all. I am Kumar Ketkar, Member of Parliament, Rajya Sabha, and I am Executive Member of the Parliamentary Network of the World Bank India Group. I am very happy to welcome you all. It will be difficult to pronounce correctly all the names coming from different parts of the world. So forgive me in advance if I make a mistake in pronouncing the correct name. But first of all, I welcome Dr. Vladimir Yakunin, Chairman and Co-founder of DOCRI, Berlin, Germany, and also my warm welcome for our chief guest, Dr. Alfred, and there I get a mistake. It is extremely difficult to pronounce, I must say. Yeah. So I must say just Dr. Alfred, former Chancellor of Austria, of our own Dr. Hamid Ansari here. And of course, Dr. Hamid Ansari has been familiar to me because I was a journalist and I used to cover him. Then, of course, Shivraj Patil, who was our former Speaker in Parliament for long term. With him also I am very familiar for many, many years. And he was former Speaker, as I said, and also former Home Minister, renowned Home Minister. Handled extremely difficult assignments of terrorism. Our keynote today is a country director of the World Bank, Mr. Junaid Ahmed, and the most important marshal of John Christopher Bass, Chief Executive of DOCRI Berlin. May I also welcome other speakers and participants in the dialogue based on discussion and interaction, namely of concluding our discussion. I welcome you all to the reception upstairs after the event is over. This event is over for dinner and cocktails. May I now request my colleague, Mr. Suresh Keswani, who represents DOCRI in India, to make his presentation to this conference. Thank you very much.
On behalf of Parliamentary Network on the World Bank, who are co-hosting this event together with Dialogue of Civilizations Research Institute, I welcome you all to this evening's program. As we all know, the world has been a place where we have continuously been seeking justice. The world has been conquered by innovators, the technology innovators. The innovators have created new property rights, new places from which they collect the rents. We have a world where the other second half is divided into technology absorbers who have absorbed this technology and become kind of vendor nations and develop their economies. And we have a third location of the world which is consisting of the technology deserts of this world. This three-way division has been primarily responsible for creation of conflicts throughout the world. And we at DOC believe that conflict resolution can best be addressed only by dialogue. Either you have dialogue before beginning of the conflict, or ultimately even after the conflict has ended, you have no choice but to return to the table for dialogue. And this is about which we have been trying to approach and access the intelligentsia of the world to come and sit and enlighten our minds. Because the light that we just gave to ourselves at the beginning is the critical part that is a need of the hour of the humankind. If the humankind has to survive, it has to have the knowledge, it has to have the capability to analyze situations and to address the continuously changing problems into solutions. And therefore, I have this evening, a galaxy of speakers who are going to speak on various issues and bring us closer to the solutions that we are seeking for betterment of mankind, for continuous progress of the mankind, particularly of our new generation, of our young kids who need to be educated, who need to be enlightened, and who need to see the better quality of life than we have so far given to ourselves. And with that, I would now request our chairman, Dr. Yakunin, to please come and address us with his enlightened thoughts, which have given rise to this institution, which has grown today to a size whereby the whole world is talking about it. Particularly the intelligentsia of the world has been discussing about the progress of DOC, and everybody has been asking me, everybody in India has been asking me that they would like to have some more literature, and this is what I propose to do in a short time. And I therefore welcome our chairman, Dr. Yakunin. Thank you.
Sir, your telephone, sir.
Yours,
Yours?
not mine.
Okay.
No, I think yours.
Okay. I'm sorry. Distinguished Vice President, honorable members of this meeting, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. It so happened that I'm not entirely new to India and unknown here. I see many known to me friendly faces since the beginning of the work of World Public Forum Dialogue of Civilization. Somebody is claiming that the entire ideology of Dialogue of Civilization belonged to Russia, even less than Russia, to Kremlin. The actual truth is that Dialogue of Civilization very first conference took place in Delhi under patronage of former Prime Minister Gujral and my very good friend and co-founder of World Public Forum Dialogue of Civilization, Jagdish Kapoor. Here we have his representatives also, not his, but his family representative either. And that is not strange, that the new idea of dialogue instead of clash of civilizations was brought and born here in India with its historical heritage, culture, diverse population, all the religions, huge territory, because that is exactly the practical implementation of dialogue in contemporary life, historical life, politics, economics, and social sciences. I should say this is my great pleasure to address you today, because India has long occupied a special place in the development of dialogue of civilizations, as I mentioned already, but also because at the dialogue of civilization, we have set ourselves the mission to contribute to peace and understanding between different civilizations and its nations and cultures. We cannot do that without India. We have brought the idea of dialogue of civilization specifically here at that time, but it was not our invention. That was existing always. Sometimes, people, we do know something, but suddenly somebody is coming from outside to name some things, and it's somehow coming to us. Listen, I was thinking like that, I was thinking about that, but there should be some kind of sparkling to initiate the whole process. So India was one of the sparkling momentum to develop dialogue of civilization. Before moving to talk in more depth about our vision, I would like to extend my greatest thanks to Suresh Keshwani for his leadership and for putting together tonight event and bringing all us together. Thank you very much. I cannot help, but I would like to mention, some more friends sitting in this hall to show that it is not just initiating event. It is continuation of event already have been started long ago. And of course, I would like to address to my friends from, Jawaharlal Nehru University. I would like to address to the people from different universities here and, in Mumbai. I would like to, extend my greetings to Sachin Chaturvedi, the Director General of RIS, with whom we met, 2 years ago when we had some special session devoted to India-Russian bilateral relations in the global context. And in my continuation of the work, our think tank is based in Berlin. This is true, but it is not German. Jean-Christophe, he is French, but our institute is not French. Alfred Gusenbauer, the prominent politician, good friend, he supported us when we were just the beginners. And he was Prime Minister, Chancellor of Austria. But it is not Austrian think tank. I'm Russian. This is the worst feature of my nature. I cannot help it. But Dialogue of Civilization does not belong to Russia. That is the major concept I would like to attract your attention to. Our mission, as we see it, is a global one. And this year, we also will have Rhodes Forum. We started with the platform to negotiate, to talk. And we named it World Public Forum Dialogue of Civilizations. This year we celebrate 17th session of Rhodes Forum. I cordially, on behalf of the Dialogue of Civilization Research Institute, invite all of you to come to Rhodes. You will meet there the people very attractive by their spiritual strengths, by their independence, sovereignty of their realm, to meet, to talk, and to elaborate some kind of ideas which possibly distinguished politicians will consider worth to pick up, to elaborate on that more. Because whatever strong, unofficial public-private activity is, it is for the political institutes to implement this, that, or other politics. It is essential because India, you, are also facing some new challenges, new changes due to the last elections also. It is inevitable. But what is very important, and may I introduce my humble opinion on that, and if I am wrong, just tell me I'm wrong. I never met any senior politician, presidents, prime ministers, maybe except for Alfred, who actually wants to collaborate and to pick up from the public activity. They are more concerned to organize everything, to be in front, to be on the top. And that is why nowadays politicians, they are lacking ability to listen to their own people. And this is worldwide. Look what is going on now in the community of the United States of America. Look for disturbances in France, rising of some extremely right movements in Germany. Same, I can say, we can observe in some smaller maybe amount in Russia. That's why it is extremely essential that the civil society is taking a proper place in this political infrastructure, in these political arrangements, not giving only professional politicians the right to decide what is good or not, where they can pick up what is good, what is not. I see distinguished chairman of World Bank. They do a lot of researches on different aspects of human activity. They're trying to do their best to introduce the challenges, and not only them, but inequality is growing in the world. despite the fact that we enjoy the most wealthy society since the start of human civilization at all. Where is the problem? Why are we unable to settle those inequalities? We were talking today about educational aspects. Our kids, they are losing possibility to concentrate after between 6-12 minutes. Who is responsible for that? The new type of life? Okay, that's true. But, you know, I don't want to keep your attention for too long, but I would like to introduce one quotation from Jagdish Kapoor. I would like to find where it is. When he was working with us, at the time when the world is going through profound disruptions and turbulences, I believe they speak louder than ever, his words. The coming demise of a violent and destructive system is a time to celebrate and to let new dreams and visions flower, making life gentler and more meaningful for all. He also stated that the contemporary society, the contemporary arrangements of the society, this is one of the military-protected consumerism. Talking back about the inability of the kids to concentrate. You know, this is not only that the way of life changed dramatically, but because they are, from the very small age, are invited to this type of consumerist society. And we, the fathers, the mothers, the elder brothers, we have to be responsible for the future generation. That is the notion I would like to deliver today. Dialogue is not just one of the multiple ways for solving the challenges of our world. It is the only way through which change can be achieved. Dialogue is not simply a catchphrase. It fosters tolerance and mutual understanding. Dialogue rests on the belief that all sides are equal, meaning civilizations are equal, big or small. Dialogue helps to explore ideas and assumptions openly and without judgment. Yet dialogue is not merely an exchange of views. It helps to develop a shared understanding of global problems. It fosters mutual insight and allows for a joint development of solutions for common purposes. Ladies and gentlemen, having in mind the volatility of global politics, having in mind this inequality I mentioned, it is our belief that the world is not changing by itself. It is us, the people, the civilizations, who should change the world for better and for future generation. This is essence and the mission of Dialogue of Civilization in some interpretation, of course, and I would like to welcome you to not only to think, but actively to participate in the development of idea of dialogue of civilization in terms of its political application, consideration of the possible alternative economic, global economic system, even banking, if you wish. And you have one Nobel laureate here, Janusz, who introduced an attempt for alternative banking, by the way. So thank you for your attention, and I hope that we will continue our work together. My pleasure.
Good evening, everyone. It is my pleasure and my honor now to call on stage Vice President Hamid Ansari and former Chancellor of Austria, Alfred Gusenbauer. So, if you please come on stage. Good evening. My name is Jean-Christophe Bas. I'm the CEO of the Dialogue of Civilization Institute. I will have the pleasure and the honor to moderate this first panel tonight. We are running a little bit late, so I also have the dirty job of being the timekeeper. But it is really a great pleasure to start with the first discussion with two very senior policymakers from India and from Europe. This event today is about India in a changing world, but more specifically this dialogue is to look at the world 30 years after the end of the Cold War and what are the global implications and the perspective trends. We are indeed 30 years after the end of the Berlin Wall. The world has radically changed in 30 years. We are also just a few weeks after the election in India and just a few weeks after the election in Europe. So this is an interesting time for a dialogue between two senior policymakers, politicians from India and to Europe, and to ask them to share their views about where the world is heading from an Indian perspective and from a European perspective, since we are, as a Dialogue of Civilization Institute, really willing at trying to bring together the multiple perspectives. So, without delay, I would like to ask Dr. Gusenbauer to share his views, and just to tell everyone that Dr. Gusenbauer was the Chancellor of Austria in 2007 and 2008. And if I can add, let's say more on a personal note, because we are under the auspices of the Parliamentary Network on the World Bank, I had the pleasure and the honor to meet with Dr. Gusenbauer, who was at that time member of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, and who was a very tough rapporteur of the Bretton Woods and the World Bank organization. And so we used to meet, and he was an expert on the activity of the World Bank and the IMF. So we will have for a few minutes introductory speech by Dr. Gusenbauer, and then Vice President Hamid Ansari, who was the Vice President of India between 2007 and 2017, and who is also a very seasoned and experienced diplomat. I think you have been serving as a permanent representative from your country to the United Nations, and also as an ambassador in many important countries, in Iran, in Saudi Arabia, in the UAE. So I think we have all the ingredients for a fascinating exchange. Thank you.
Yeah, Jean-Christophe, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure and my privilege to be among you today in the evening, even if I will be limited to some humble remarks, because the time doesn't allow to go deeper into the substance, but don't be sad. For all of those that think that you want to go deeper in the subject, in your files you have this small booklet that is covering the speech that I gave in Berlin at the beginning of December, mainly focusing on the European elections that then were still ahead of us, and the ramifications that these elections might have. And if this booklet is not enough and my glimpse today is not enough, don't forget to come to Rhodos. We will have the possibility to continue our conversations there. So what has changed in the past 30 years after the fall of the Berlin Wall and the end of the Cold War? Up to then, the Cold War was characterized by a bipolar situation in the world with two hegemonic powers, the United States of America and the Soviet Union. This order collapsed due to the fall of the Berlin Wall and the dissolution of the Soviet Union, and moved into a unipolar situation where one hegemon, the United States of America, was the only remaining superpower that for at least quite some time was dominating the rules of the game and what was going on in the world. Now we are in the transition to a more multipolar world. I would not call it a multipolar world yet, because this would mean that there is already a set of organization that would organize that multipolar world. So we are, in a way, in a transitory period. And this transitory period, of course, is characterized by different interests, because the United States of America still want to preserve the unipolar order, and in addition to this unipolar order, they want to exit from the multilateral world and enter the world of bilateral deals, as the US president calls it. While the rest of the world, be it small or big nations, are interested more in a multipolar world and are interested in a multilateral system of cooperation, with all the deficiencies that that might have, but being interested in a multilateral order that gives everybody a say and at least has built up a system of institutions that, with all deficiencies, was working at least to a certain extent. From this general perspective, we have to observe what are the strategies of some of the main players in the world. As you might have recognized, the relationship between the European Union and the United States of America was never as bad as it is right now. And we are not only talking about contributions to the NATO budget, about increasing trade conflicts between the US and the European Union, but of course also major political and strategic differences, not at least what concerns the future of the Iran nuclear deal and other issues. Second, the US is sometimes in a confrontational situation with Russia, even if on issues like how to get some sort of consolidation of the situation in Syria. There are once in a while agreements and understandings, but in general the atmosphere is rather confrontational. The tensions between China and the US are increasing due to different elements, but in the core of the dispute are the issues of trade and commerce and customs and intellectual property, so all what is characterizing the competition between those two powers. The US are getting more and more repugnant on Iran. They finished their participation in the Iran nuclear deal, and at least there are steps visible nowadays that lead us closer to a military confrontation than before. And such a potential military confrontation also has some supporters in the Middle East. So this just gives you a glimpse on what the US is doing in many areas. China, as the other main contender in world politics, has designed one of the smartest geopolitical strategies ever in the history of mankind, which is the One Belt, One Road initiative that, as we all know, is not only an infrastructural initiative, but a geopolitical concept that tries to develop the northwest of China, tries to help to reach some hegemony in Central Asia, and improve the access to the Middle East and to Europe. This One Belt, One Road initiative so far has seen major infrastructural investments, mainly in Pakistan, which up to now is the main beneficiary of this initiative, which is also reshuffling the entire situation in the area here. In addition to the One Belt, One Road initiative, China has organized the Group of 16+1, which is a group of Central and Eastern European countries, members of the European Union and candidates for membership. And the task of that group is to block any anti-Chinese actions or legislation by the European Union. If one is not formulating that in such a diplomatic manner, one could say that this is an attempt to split the European Union, at least upon the question on how should one deal with China. You are, of course, observing the activities of China in the South China Sea, and, of course, their focus on the maritime routes through the Strait of Malacca, where they want to secure the supply of raw materials from the Middle East and from Africa to China. Russia, as a third main protagonist, in the definition of Mr. Putin, has a very clear aim, which is the reconstruction of the Russian hegemony in the post-Soviet area. This general attitude, of course, leads to different conflicts on the margins of Russia, not only in Caucasia, in the Ukraine, and in other places, and leads to a situation where some of the countries neighboring Russia feel a little bit uncomfortable. Others have entered very close cooperation with Russia. So this is just a glimpse on what big powers, not all of them, but some of the big powers are aiming at the moment. Second point that is characterizing the geostrategic situation are the economic changes that are going on in the world. One is, of course, digitalization that will completely change the way of production and labor that we are facing in the world up to now. Second is the economic effect of climate change. The third is that we are undergoing a fundamental change in the energy market, where energy markets become from a demand-driven market, where everybody is gearing for energy, to a supply-driven market. And if you look to the confrontational atmosphere between the United States of America and Russia, for instance, the Russians want to build, together with the Europeans, Nord Stream 2, which is a gas supply pipeline from Russia to Europe. And at the same time, the Americans say, no, you're becoming too much dependent on Russia. You should better buy LNG, so liquefied natural gas, from us. And this gives you a certain idea that the energy markets are more supply-driven in future than demand-driven, which has to do with the increase of energy efficiency, with the coming up of renewable energies, with all the new technologies that we are going to use in production. And in many countries, economies around the world, we already have managed that the economic growth rate is decoupled from the energy consumption growth rate. So while in the old days there was a parallelity between the growth in energy consumption and the economic growth, now with less energy consumption we can create more economic growth. So this is an important change on the economic field. In addition, we have to see how the demographic developments in the world are fundamentally influencing the economic development. I do not have to tell you, India rather soon will be the most populous country in the world, sooner than many thought that to happen. On the other hand, we will have countries that are dramatically diminishing their population. If you look to Japan, for instance, we all, I hope so, will see a Japan with less than 100 million inhabitants if they are not doing a fundamental change in their migration policies. Countries like Russia are still declining in their population. Many of the European countries, not at least Germany in the decades to come, will have smaller population. And you know, population growth in Africa is tremendous. So this, of course, will have also dramatic economic consequences. The third element is what is going to happen in questions of politics and military and elections. I can tell you, if some are complaining nowadays about the influencing of elections in the US or in the Ukraine or in Germany or whatsoever, this will be part of the game. Each power that is interested in the political behavior of another power will try to influence their elections. Be not in the classic way by bribery or whatsoever. No, it will be much more fun. It will be cyber wars, it will be artificial intelligence. Maybe you saw this very strange picture where you see Nancy Pelosi, where they did a picture or a movie of Nancy Pelosi and where they just marginally corrected her behavior so that as a viewer you have the impression that she's drunk. Yeah? But she was completely sober and she was very clear. But by all these technical means that you have nowadays in media, you could completely denaturate the appearance of a person. And this is what we will see, you know. I mean, if you are going to politics, you nowadays have to calculate that stories will come up about you that you never have dreamed about. Not talking that you participated, that you have been there. And you will get to know such a lot of people that you never saw, but they will be connected with you. So I have the impression that this is getting more and more dirty and will, of course, lead to a further destruction of people's trust in politics. At the same time, we face a new wave of armament. All the big nations in the world are increasing their armament expenditures, and after, let's say, we have consumed the so-called peace dividend after the end of the Cold War, now armament expenses are tremendously increasing. Of course, there's a lot of talk about the Chinese and others who spend such a lot of money in armament. Let's not forget Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa together are spending less than 60% of the budget of the Pentagon. So the gap in military capacity between the United States of America and the rest of the world is still increasing, despite all armament expenditures by the others. So what are the current features that we are facing on basis of all these developments? We are either facing war, as in Syria, or we are facing frozen conflict, like in the Caucasian area and in other places. So it's most of the time either frozen conflict or war. This, in my understanding, are both features that are not sustainable for a peaceful world, and this is why we are engaged in the dialogue of civilization, because we want to find means that go beyond that trap that only war and frozen conflict is an alternative to settle conflicts. My impression is that there are some old school politics, so I think that military alliances of Warsaw Treaty and NATO are a matter of the past. I also think that it is old school if one thinks that he or she can improve the living of her population by occupying and dominating other countries. That's all old school. This is old colonial thinking by new means, which will not create a political yield for those who are undertaking it. Globalization, of course, can be slowed down, but it cannot be stopped. With all the economic, technological, financial means we have available, this is a feature that we will be confronted with in future. So what is my prediction? My prediction is that we will see in future variable geometry of alliances all around the world, where people, organizations, and countries come together who can reconcile their interests. I think that the dialogue of civilizations that has to go on should be based on common principles, even if we cannot agree on institutions or networks, but at least we should agree on common principles how this dialogue of civilization should happen. And I think if we want to have a renaissance of multilateralism, it has to happen in a new form. I think that things can still get better if we reach an understanding that cooperation and competition is a much better guideline for the relationship of countries and cultures than the feature of confrontation and war. And this is why we are engaged in the dialogue of civilizations and how we try to contribute to a better world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Gusenbauer, for this very thoughtful statement and also this conclusion with the words of wisdom. We are all drinking water, so there is no risk that there will be a distorted picture. So it's my pleasure now and honor to turn to Vice President Sari to invite him to share his views from, this time, an Indian perspective.
Well, it's always difficult to follow someone who has a better global view than I can profess to have. I want to focus on structures rather than the foundations, rather than structures that have been built on it. There was an old philosopher who talked about the habits of the owl of Minerva. Now, the owl of Minerva is wisdom, but wisdom comes late. And I think we've been through this exercise so frequently, and the world has been around for such a long time. There was a historian of universal history who studied 21 societies throughout human history. And a great many of them perished and some of them survived. But the ones who perished, his judgment was that they committed suicide. And they committed suicide because they, somewhere in their flourish, they forgot the basics of exchange of ideas. They took their perceptions as granted and their perceptions as overwhelming and superior to everybody else. So what we have to think today is basically in terms of, firstly, what do we mean by dialogue? A dialogue is not a discussion. A dialogue is not meant, it's not like a soccer game or a cricket game that there has to be a result. A dialogue is simply an exercise in trying to understand the working of other minds, other perceptions, and how do they reach certain conclusions. We have talked so much in our generation about security, about national security. And of course, mention has been made by the previous speaker about the kind of exercise that countries and groups of countries have done in exercising superiority and the quest for superiority to be obtained through military security. And vast quantities have been spent and continue to be spent, including by my own country, on armament which is never going to be used. Enormous resources are being diverted, and it doesn't really matter who's spending more and who's spending less. But the question is, can those resources be devoted to real challenges? What are the challenges today and tomorrow? Let's not worry so much about past challenges. Past challenges have come, they have either succeeded in solving problems or destroying countries and participants. But what are the challenges of the future? The concept that security can be addressed through geometrical processes of traditional security and non-traditional security is hopelessly outdated. There is no such thing as traditional security which is not impacted on by what is known as non-traditional security. And the better idea, and a lot of people today are devoting time and attention to it, is comprehensive security. Comprehensive security not only of rulers or ruling structures, but comprehensive security of societies. And therefore, once we start, number one, let's talk of societies and the human beings in societies. Secondly, let's not talk of countries and their interests, but interests of groups of countries and humanity as a whole. Because to think that Group A shall survive, there was an old concept, a great leader of those days said, what if there is a nuclear war? You know, so many will die, but so many will still survive. Nobody will survive. So we have to think out of that particular box and talk of comprehensive security. And to talk of comprehensive security, we have to then take a good view of what are the challenges today and what will be the challenges tomorrow. None of them are national challenges. Some of them may be regional challenges, but most of them are global challenges. Whether it is pandemics, whether it is climate change, whether it is a problem that we in India are facing in a very acute sense today, which is water. So where do we go from there unless we have a serious dialogue about scarcity of resources in the coming generations? Secondly, what is physically possible and scientifically possible either to utilize those resources better or to enhance them? And thirdly, what are the structures available for developing better cooperation. In 1945, we thought the United Nations is the answer. We have seen now, 7 decades or more later, that the United Nations is not the answer. It has simply become a forum where you debate, where you thump the table and try to score points. Nothing happens. No problems have been solved through United Nations. Certainly, problems of non-traditional security will not be solved. We have a strange mindset that certain things can be settled in non-political bodies of UN, but not in political bodies. UNESCO can solve problems, WHO can solve problems, the Civil Aviation Organization can solve problems, but the Security Council cannot solve problems. And the General Assembly of the United Nations can certainly solve no problems except record speeches. So the challenge really is look for answers to challenges of comprehensive security. Look for how civilization as a whole can be advanced. There is no bifurcation, trifurcation of civilizations. All civilizations are equally important. We in India claim with much justice that we are a very old civilization and we have contributed a great deal to human thinking, human arts, human sciences. But we never forget, and I hope we never do forget, that our civilization, Dr. Yakunin and I were talking about it earlier, we are not homogeneous. Anybody who thinks that the Indians are a homogeneous people is living in a fool's paradise. According to our official estimates, there are 635 communities in India. If you travel from the northernmost point in Ladakh to the southernmost point in Tamil Nadu, tell me, where is the uniformity? Where is the similarity? Whether it is in languages, we claim to have at least 120 languages. At least, I'm not talking of dialects, I'm talking of languages. Then, food habits. Try to make a Kashmiri eat Kerala food or vice versa. Politeness might prevail for a while, but not beyond that. Dress habits and so on and so forth. So here in India, diversity for us is a fact of life. And most Indians, though not all, tend to think that diversity can be replaced by some form of uniformity. It cannot be. And the glory of India, and I think the glory of the world, is in diversity. So what can our dialogue, how can it assist in the promotion of diversity? Because it is only through diversity and acceptance of diversity do we accept or come round to projecting a state of mind which is tolerant of diversity. But I would like to go further than that, because tolerance is a negative concept. I tolerate the other person for this reason or that reason. I think we have to go beyond that. We have to accept. We have to accept the other as good or with as many limitations as myself. And it is only when we have that attitude of acceptance acceptance of diversity, that we can begin to solve what are horrendous problems confronting us. Those are problems of climate change. Worlds have been destroyed before. Species have been destroyed before. There is no reason to think that we have a special sanction or a special mandate to survive for all times. In a different context, there was a discussion about the Lord Almighty, by whatever name you call him, is the creator. And I said, yes, it's the creator, but it is also the destroyer. And there was a poet who said in India that there are worlds beyond it, long before we started discovering worlds beyond. So there are other worlds. There is no guarantee. Species have perished on this earth. There is no guarantee that the present species, including human species, will survive unless we learn to survive. There is a young author, I am forgetting his name right now, brilliant writer, who's written several books, that the answer lies in technology, and the human being has to concede ground to technology. Yes and no. Because I don't know who has seen that film which I saw a long time back, a spacecraft in which there was a very powerful computer called Hull, Hull. And the human commander was there, and the computer system called Hull was doing all that needed to be done to navigate that spacecraft. And there came a time when Mr. Hull or Ms. Hull decided to tell the human commander, you are irrelevant, you are superfluous, you are not needed. The sooner you get lost, the better. So we can create technology on those terms. But are we confident enough that the technology we create will necessarily solve that problem without creating other problems? Yes, we have created new information technology. We've had excellent examples of it in our own country during the recent electoral battles. News has always been accompanied by fake news. There are facts have always been accompanied by alternate facts, and so on and so forth. So, are we really sufficiently confident that the technology that we have created will necessarily be the technology that we need in the long run? That is the challenge. We will solve each one of these problems. You know, you can desalinate water, you can do this, you can do that. But then where do you end up 50 years, 100 years from now? We cannot project that. And therefore the need for caution is there. Therefore, the need for understanding what is happening in the other mind is also there. Therefore, the need for dialogue is there. And this is where the relevance lies. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Excellency Mr. Ansari, for your statement. And I think that there was probably no better way that to have both of you setting the stage, sharing your perspective. I think, you know, you took us to a very high level of reflection and wisdom. So this is a very nice way, and also to illustrate the way the Dialogue of Civilization Institute is working through sharing views, dialogue, respect. And for those of you who certainly want to know more, I mean, of course, we will get back later on the Rhodos Forum, where we will continue the discussion. But I know we are running a little bit late, so I will now call on stage Rima Gautam, who will be moderating the two next roundtable. Thank you.
We have done our bit. Thank you. How are you?